I'm Justin Davis, and this is Joe Camp's RC. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Justin Davis. Today I'm going to do an honest review of the AK A800. This is a $50 micro sailplane. This thing is so cool, mainly because you can do a lot of things with this little plane. It comes with one 2S battery and a little transmitter running on 2.4 that you can get out there pretty far. You want to fly this on a super calm day because it is quite light. This plane actually only weighs 110 grams. That is amazingly light. It does fly with a 2S 300 milliamp per hour battery inside this little cockpit, and I do have a little bit of packing tape on the side right here because a lot of times when I'm flying these little gliders I lose the canopy mid-air, and that's never good. Even on my Horizon Hobby Radian, the E-Flight Radian, I usually do fly with a little bit of tape over top of the canopy, just a good precaution. It also has no video that comes along with it. If you want to add a little FPV camera like what you see on here, just a little dab of hot glue and a 1S battery right behind there, that little black plate right there is perfect for mounting an FPV camera. And a 1S battery is what you're going to use to power the whole thing. I'll show you. I have one right here in my pocket. This little guy right here, little Tiny Whoop HV. This is a 1S 205 milliamp per hour battery that's going to power our video. But first we're going to do a line of sight flight test with it. After that, once I know it's dialed in, we'll do some FPV with it, and I'll show you what the first person view looks like. What I really like about this little sailplane, aside from the cool graphics on it, it has swept back wingtips, and it does have ailerons, so it is a 4-channel sailplane, which is really cool, with your ailerons, tail, your throttle, and your rudder on here. You have all the bells and whistles on this little glider, so it's so cool that it's just a scaled down replica of something much larger. I love sailplanes, and this one is really special to me. It also has a little skid on the bottom, and the antenna comes out the bottom as well. And it's super simple to put together. You need a little tiny Phillips head screwdriver. There's 3 screws on it, 2 that hold the wing together. The wings snap together right there, and 1 screw in the tail, and you're pretty much ready to fly. You also need some AA batteries in the back of this. I believe it takes 4 AA batteries in this little transmitter. It also has 2 modes of flight, what we call 3G and 6G. Your 3G will be your stabilized flight, and your 6G will be your unstabilized flight. So once you get good at flying this plane in stabilized mode, which is really great with FPV by the way, you can switch over to 6G to do some unstabilized flight. Kind of learn how to fly a little airplane. One last cool thing about it is it does have a folding prop, so if the ESC brake is set up correctly, when I pull the throttle all the way down, the motor should cut off, the prop should fold back like that, and we should just glide like a real sailplane. And it's really, really calm right now out there, so this is the perfect time to just go ahead and plug in the battery and start flying this little baby. Now I'm going to leave the FPV camera on there, and I'm gonna take this tape off the side real quick and plug in the battery. And the battery of choice today, by the way, is not the one that came with it. I'm gonna fly the GNB 2S300 HV battery on here, and I have an XT30 on here, as you notice, but I also did solder up an XT30 inside the plane as well. It doesn't come with an XT30, but this is what I would recommend upgrading it to. This little tiny brushless motor in the front can definitely handle it. So let's go ahead and take the tape off. I'll put the battery in there. We'll turn the transmitter on. We'll get everything going here. Okay, so you can see the hatch is off now. Just gonna take this battery out. The battery fits perfectly in there. The 300 milliamp works perfect, and I've got that little XT30 right there. I'm just gonna go ahead and plug it in. The transmitter is on. And actually, this works the opposite way. You plug in the battery first on the plane, and then you plug in, or you turn on your radio. Just gonna seat it in just like that, push the wire back this direction, make sure everything is nice and snug here. Gonna put that battery all the way to the furthest forward point that I can get it. Gonna make sure that prop is not under the canopy. You should hear it click when you snap it down. There's a little click there and it locks into place. Now I can turn on the transmitter, and you want to do a surface check first. So your roll axis on your ailerons, if you push to the left, this side right here should come up, and When I push right, this side should come up. So left and up, right and up. That's good to go. So now we're gonna roll on left and right, proper to the stick. Now the back, we're gonna do the rudder, left, right, we're good there. And for your elevator, you wanna see that it goes up and down. So I'm not getting any more up. So that means I need to probably trim down a little bit here. And right now we're in low rates, so let's just go ahead and put it in high rates. It has high and low rates. There we go. Okay, so you'll notice that all my batteries are gone off the ground. I put my batteries inside my jacket pocket because when you're flying in the wintertime, it's always a good idea to keep your batteries warm. So I have throttle right here. I'm ready to go with the throttle. All my surfaces are correct on the plane. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a hand toss. Just gonna give it about 3/4 to full throttle and give it a toss straight out. Now I'm gonna pull back on my elevator and come up a little bit, use a little bit of rudder. I like to fly with a lot of rudder because it keeps the plane more level. If you only use aileron, it does kind of a big sweeping bank left and right, which is totally fine. But you're gonna keep the nose down a lot if you use rudder. You'll have to use less ailerons in your turns or less elevator in your turns, should I say. Getting around behind that tree right there. And I'm just gonna cut the motor. The throttle is all the way down. Check this out. We should see that that prop stops spinning. It should close and fold back. And this is a little tiny microplane, so you could actually fly this little guy probably in something like a baseball field. Gonna try not to hit those trees right there. Do a little buzzing in the tower. Nice. I love little microplanes. It's being pushed around by the wind a little bit. You know, I'm noticing that it does track pretty straight. If I let go of the throttle here, it flies. It glides. It really does glide like a glider, which is awesome. Uh-oh, almost hit that tree. I was hoping that as small as this little plane is, that it would fly like a big glider, you know, have that sort of glider aesthetic to it, and it really does. It looks like a full-size glider in the air. Really cool. So I'm just gonna leave my throttle here. Let's go full throttle and see how much altitude I can get here. Just gonna keep going up a little bit. Now, if you fly out of range with this, it's gonna fail safe, and the receiver is gonna cut to 0, and it's just gonna start gliding. The throttle will die, and you'll just come to a landing wherever it decides to land. So keep that in mind. If you go too high with this little guy, you could lose it, especially if there's a good amount of wind. If there is a lot of wind, you really want to keep this glider on the ground, because if you throw it up and you fly it this high, you'll never see it again. Very, very important to flying micros. Choose those days where it's just dead calm, like today. The sun is not cooperating with me right now. Seems to be better behind us. And this thing is really predictable. So right now I'm just giving it a little aileron left, circling around the field, a tiny bit of elevator as I make my turn. That keeps the nose up. A little more throttle here. And this is all line of sight flying. And I'm still flying this little guy on that 2S 300 milliamp. Look how slow and gentle this plane is. If you wanted a plane for an RC trainer to learn how to fly airplanes with your typical standard stick setup like we have here, this is a really easy one to start with. This one would be good also for training kids. Coming all the way back over here, I'm able to fly all the way across this field, and right now that's close to 150 meters over there, which is not bad. You could probably fly out 300 meters with this 2.4 transmitter. This is going to go a long ways. If you're doing FPV, you can absolutely make it to that tree line out there with this plane. One of the fun things about sailplanes is putting a longer range receiver on your plane. And man, I am way out there right now. I wish I had the camera on there for you guys. But going out there a little longer range with sailplanes is kind of common practice in the hobby. A lot of people that fly sailplanes put really long range receivers on those so that they can get way up in the air. And I've seen people fly higher than 400 feet with sailplanes, line of sight. Not something you really didn't see. You know, everybody was doing it back in the 80s and 90s, flying RC airplanes. And a lot of us flew next to airports where a lot of AMA fields are located, mainly because they want to foster aviation, or at least they should. Let's go ahead and cut the motor up there and let it glide, man. Look at that little guy glide. Isn't that cool? This is where I started out, guys. I have been known as a drone guy in quotations for a long time, but I started out as an airplane guy. Airplane kid, actually. I would get these little gliders from the store. You know, those little balsa gliders with a rubber band. I started out also making paper airplanes to start with, and then I got balsa airplanes. But man, I used to have so much fun with just a simple paper airplane, making all kinds of different ones. We made like the sharp nose pointed ones. We made the flat nose ones that would, I don't know if you guys remember folding up a piece of paper from the front and then bending up two wingtips on the outside. Man, you would throw those things and they would go forever. They would do loops. They were a lot of fun. So I'm still going on that same 2S 300 milliamp battery. And if you kill the motor and just glide a little bit like I was doing when I was way up there, like you would a regular glider, man, you can get probably a 15-minute flight time out of this 2S 300 milliamp battery. That's about a $3, $4 battery, which is really awesome. And I have a whole bag of these 2S 300 milliamps and 350 milliamp this will handle, mainly because I fly a lot of my micro brushless quadcopters with those same batteries, that same size. My indoor 2S whoops that everybody's flying right now, this plane uses the exact same battery as that Mobula 7, which is killer. It's awesome. Same battery, different experience. Man, that plane just really hangs in there and does a really nice straight line. I can't wait to FPV this for you guys. You guys are gonna love this. And the wind is kind of coming from my back right now, so when I'm going downwind, I'm losing a lot of altitude with, see, I'm still zero motor right here, just gliding. Now I'm back on the throttle a little bit. Try not to hit this tree right here. Really does have a decent turn radius. Here comes the sun again for us. Let's go back over here to the right, over there in the sun. Look at that plane light up a little bit over there in the sun. It's probably kind of a speck out there on the GoPro at this point, but man, that's so cool. I love this little plane. It's so quiet. You almost can't hear it with the motor on. I keep thinking that the motor is dying because the motor is so quiet. Right now we might actually have a motor dying, so I'm going to bring it in. That battery's probably done. Just going to belly land it just like that, and that's it. So I would say we got close to 10 minutes on that one battery. And if you want to time out your battery, you put a timer on your battery. You could probably do 8 minutes safe on a 2S 300 on an average day with the wind like it is today. A little bit of mud on the bottom of it, but now I'm ready to do some FPV with our little camera setup on here, and I'm gonna put some links down below. If you guys want to get a little camera setup like this, all it is sort of a run cam clone camera that I have on there with a piggyback 5.8 antenna, and you can use your goggles along with it, record your DVR footage with this little guy, and really have a whole different experience. So 2 experiences in one with this A800. I love the little winter theme they have going on it. On the tail it says 100% ready to fly, and it really is. And you have stabilized mode and non-stabilized mode, whichever one you want to fly. That's really cool. So let's go ahead and do some FPV and I'll take you up in the sky. All right, let's go ahead and get this AK A800 sailplane up in the air. Let's do some FPV this time. This is really cool because right now I'm flying in stabilized mode, in that 3G mode. And it does have manual mode, which I was telling you guys about before, but usually I don't switch into that with these AK products. I usually switch into 6G when I'm on the ground. They had a 3D multi-rotor that they released a few years ago, and it had an inverted throttle type of setup, which was really neat because when you flip the quad over, it would fly inverted. I can't remember the name of that quad, but it was super awesome. And if you flipped into that sort of 6G mode, when you were flying at mid-air, it would crash because your throttle would be somewhere you didn't understand. It would change throttle direction at mid-stick, left and right, which was had a bi-directional type of prop, which is really cool. But today, it's all about the A800. So enough about the 3D multi-rotor, but they have some new ones coming out. I'm going to try to get one on the channel coming up soon. How about this? This is a really predictable fixed wing setup, and you can do this FPV setup for under $20. This camera that I have on there and the piggyback from AKK, it's a little tiny piggyback camera, VTX, that I have soldered together there, or actually just two wires connect everything together. Super easy to set up. I decided to try this little gap for you guys, and I got unlucky and hit a pipe that I didn't see there. But whenever something bad happens, I usually have to try it again just to prove to myself that I can do it. Because, you know, I mean, we can't just give up. Never give up. Never give up. Hashtag never give up. You gotta try it again. That might be the skater personality coming out there. You fall down, you gotta get it back up and try it again. So almost not making it that time. A little bit sketchy, and I'm flying in stabilized mode, so the gyro is kind of fighting me here. The gyro is nice when you're up and FPVing way up there. You can just kind of let go of your roll stick and cruise. Nice, I made it through. Now I'm feeling good about that. So I'm just going to cruise down this little road, and you really can do some cool proximity with microplanes because they're so small and they can slow down so much that you can really get in there nice and tight. And the cool thing about this little plane is it almost has, it's very predictable. It almost has zero type of stall to it. I have not been able to stall this plane out, which is really good. So the swept back wingtip out on the ends of the wings there, it is a long narrow wing, but it does have a tiny bit of dihedral, and dihedral means that they're flipped up on the tips, which creates a nice airfoil and a very smooth, predictable flying plane. So yeah, my battery died right there, so another durability test, and I did not bend the motor shaft, which is awesome. And right here, I'm just doing my first preliminary range check on it, and already I'm over by the parking lot, and I flew out by the crane right there, which is about halfway to the tree line out there. Those pine trees all the way out is about 300 meters, which is about 900 feet. So right here I'm about 450 feet out, around 150 meters. Just up there cruising. Now I'm testing out a little bit of altitude. I kind of want to simulate what it would be like to fly a larger sailplane with FPV. And the smaller the planes are, the more they're going to give you kind of a more of a bumpy ride. Not quite as smooth as a much larger plane would be, but whenever you're flying fixed wing FPV, it's going to kind of look like this. It's not going to be quite as smooth as flying a drone, especially like a DJI drone or something. And if you're new to FPV, this is on 5.8 gigahertz, which is way different image view and quality than your typical DJI Phantom or Mavic quadcopters, because those are running different type of transmission, 720p up to a very nice resolution on your phones. And this is a much lower resolution because the video is more in a real-time situation. Wi-Fi video is very laggy, so a lot of FPV racers and people that fly FPV fly on 5.8. There are several other types of frequencies you can fly on if you're doing longer range. You can try out 2.4, and you can try out 900 megahertz if you want, but so now we're 433. That's the old school way to do things. A lot of people aren't using 433 anymore. Or 1.3. There's all kinds of different frequencies you can do. But this one is the crowd favorite. 5.8 is usually going to be your proximity type flyer. They do have some VTXs by AK, another company that makes VTXs that are probably some of the most long range 5.8 transmitters out there. Up to about 1,000 milliwatt. 800 will get you miles. 1,000 will get you way out there. Around 3 miles or more. But you better fly high on the way out. That's the general rule of long range. The further out you go, the higher you have to fly to maintain your signal, because you have to stay line of sight with your transmitter, your video transmitter, and your ground station. But right now, I am rocking the Foxeer new patch antenna, and it seems to be working really well. I pulled my Immersion RC patch antenna off of my goggles to test this one out this week for you guys, and I did test it on some I believe it was the Mephisto a few reviews ago, Quad of the Year, and it did awesome. It also has a really nice transmitter on the Mephisto from HGLRC. So I'm headed back over here near that tractor again, the digger as my son calls him. Yeah, and just still cruising, enjoying the FPV view. Coming back seems to be a little harder on the BTX. And I have a dipole antenna on here, and I'm only running this on 25 milliwatt, guys, so I'm not even running 200, and I'm able to get out this far, which is really interesting. Now I'm going to do the range test. I'm going to try to fly out to that tree line for you guys, right on the edge of the tree farm down on my right. There's a hay farm on the left that I'm crossing over right here. And there is a man's property straight ahead there, so I'm gonna not fly over his property, because sometimes people like to take shots at things out in the country. They will shoot your planes down, so don't fly over people's farm that you don't know. I actually had a friend of mine get his, I believe it was his long-range multi-rotor shot down. No, it was a fixed wing. Little tiny, I believe it was the Sonic model Mini, got shot down. That is a small plane to shoot down, but he had a shotgun and he had a really good shot at it about 100 feet up. And my friend had a lot of money invested into that little guy. So if anyone shoots your stuff, that is your personal property, and the law will actually go after the person that shoots your aircraft. So if that happens, make a police report. Man, it is really dark coming back on this transmitter, so I'm turning to the right a lot to avoid that shot of directly into the sun. Kind of cruising back over the field right here. I'm going to make a left turn and come back toward myself, and really enjoying the altitude that this plane gets. So the little 2.4 transmitter that comes along with this plane is the right choice for this plane. And if I had to give this plane a star rating, it would be a 5.0 out of 5. I'm trying to think of some cons about this plane, but it's performing out there like a full-size plane. I guess one con might be that you can't really fly this on a windy day. If you toss this up and it's blowing over 10 miles an hour, you're probably going to crash it. I also like the fact that it does have the ESC brake setup, so take your throttle and push your throttle all the way down to 0 on the throttle trim, and your motor will cut out like this, which is really nice for sailing. You can just cruise. And look at that, almost 0 stall factor, so that's another huge positive of this plane. So I really enjoyed this plane, and I can recommend it on my channel. It is not a loser situation for $50. I think it's an awesome value and a great trainer, especially if you want to add some FPV for under 20 bucks. I'll add those links below, but don't forget to comment on this video, guys. Get entered to win that Tiny Hawk and the Mephisto 6S race drone coming up on January 2nd, because both of those drones are really kick-ass, and I'm going to give them away to you guys, my subscribers on the channel. So if you'd also like to support me on Patreon, that will be extra special, and we can have some one-on-one talks and tech support if you need it. But thanks again for flying with me, guys. I always appreciate you hanging out and flying with me. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys. Happy holidays.